Flatland does not promise peace. It promises exposure. Where the terrain offers no resistance, movement accelerates, and acceleration changes the balance of power. This is ACHRONIC, a long-form documentary series about power, geography, and time. Not events, not heroes, not chronology, structures that outlast empires. Across open plains, distance is not broken by elevation. There are no ridgelines to redirect momentum, no corridors to compress passage, no natural barriers to slow approach. Expansion across flat land is linear. Armies can advance in wide formation. Supply lines extend without constant recalculation. Communication travels with fewer interruptions. In such environments, the cost of movement declines, and when movement becomes cheap, confrontation becomes frequent. Invasion is often described as ambition or aggression, but terrain alters probability long before intention forms. On flat land, the absence of friction reduces the threshold for action. It is not that rulers become more hostile. It is that opportunity becomes more available. The decision to advance requires fewer logistical concessions. Geography lowers the barrier to entry. Mountains fragment, narrow passages compress, but plains expose. Exposure changes defensive posture. Without natural obstacles, borders are conceptual rather than structural. A line drawn across a plain is not reinforced by elevation or river. It exists only through constant enforcement, and constant enforcement demands resources. Flat land creates symmetry. Both sides of a border see the same horizon. Both sides calculate distance similarly. There is little asymmetry to exploit defensively. In such spaces, security depends on depth rather than obstruction. Depth requires territory. Territory invites expansion. Expansion invites resistance. The logic of open terrain encourages preemption. If movement is easy for one actor, it is easy for another. When friction is absent, delay becomes dangerous. Waiting can allow adversaries to traverse the same distance with equal speed. On flat land, hesitation is vulnerability. Historically, large continental plains have hosted repeated cycles of expansion and contraction. Not because the populations inhabiting them were uniquely aggressive, but because the geometry of the land offered few structural breaks. Armies could mobilize quickly. Trade could redirect swiftly. Political authority could project across distance without climbing or tunneling. The same conditions that allowed integration also allowed disruption. Open terrain favors scale. When nothing slows movement, larger formations dominate smaller ones. Mobility rewards concentration. The absence of natural barriers means that consolidation becomes strategic necessity. Small entities struggle to defend wide horizons. Larger entities seek buffer zones. Buffer zones become frontiers. Frontiers become battlefields. Flat land does not fragment identity as mountains do. It exposes it to pressure. Cultural exchange accelerates. So does cultural conflict. Interaction becomes unavoidable. Isolation is difficult to maintain. Without topographical shelter, communities must negotiate constantly with external forces. Yet open terrain also creates connectivity. Roads can be drawn efficiently. Railways extend without complex engineering. Communication networks proliferate. What facilitates invasion also facilitates integration. The same geometry that allows rapid advance allows rapid coordination. Flat land magnifies both cohesion and collapse. The absence of friction reduces delay. Reduced delay intensifies consequence. Decisions taken at the center propagate outward quickly. So do shocks. When defense relies on maneuver rather than obstruction, miscalculation spreads faster. The battlefield is not confined to a pass or a valley. It stretches across the horizon. This structural exposure shapes political imagination. States situated on plains often seek strategic depth beyond their immediate borders. They expand not solely from ambition, but from perceived necessity. Security is measured not in elevation, but in distance. The farther potential threats are pushed outward, the more time exists to respond. But expansion across flat land carries its own paradox. The same openness that enables advance also enables counter-advance. Gains are rarely permanent. Control must be maintained continuously. Withdrawal invites immediate reversal. Stability requires constant vigilance. Where mountains anchor and passages filter, plains accelerate. Acceleration increases encounter. Encounter increases probability of conflict. The terrain does not command invasion. It normalizes it. Flat land creates environments where borders are lines on maps rather than features in stone. Without natural edges, political boundaries must be constantly reasserted, and constant reassertion drains cohesion. Over time, open terrain produces cycles rather than permanence. Empires expand rapidly, consolidate briefly, and contract just as quickly. The horizon remains unchanged. What changes is who occupies it. The plain does not remember conquest. It remains level. It remains open. It remains traversable. And as long as movement remains easy, the possibility of advance persists, not because ambition is infinite, but because friction is absent.